The first time I used heroin was on the baby changing station at my job on the clock. I was working at a burger place, and I was going through withdrawals. And somebody said, "Here, this will make you feel better." And I said, "Thank God."
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the #1 mental health and addiction podcast, the Hopeaholics. I am your girl, Natalie Eva Marie, and these are my boys.
I'm Chad.
Hi, I'm Shane.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow us on our socials and wherever you get your podcasts.
Got a new episode dropping every Monday and Thursday. Please come check it out.
This episode is brought to you by the Infinity Group. You guys, if you or a loved one is suffering, please call us today. The number is right here on the screen. We are here for you 24/7. Now, let's get into the episode.
Louis, welcome to the Hopeaholics, man.
There you go.
Sir. Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? And you flew in from Ohio.
I know.
Ohio.
I'm ashamed when I tell people that's where I'm
What?
from.
Why?
Great hockey team, great football team, great sports.
I'm not a Buckeye fan.
No?
Every time I go to, like, I was in Miami or I come out here and, like, where are you from? Like, Ohio.
No.
You know?
It's Midwest.
Yeah.
It's Midwest. It is kind of slow.
Yeah. It
is.
It just doesn't sound that
Cows
fantastic.
and corn and cheese. I like it. I was born in Winnipeg, and I'm like, this is
The
my
Miz,
blood.
the Miz in
cornfields.
WWE is from Ohio.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
saying, This
Yeah.
is my blood. I like Midwest. That's
Yes.
We got something going on.
Yeah.
People are good. It's a different lifestyle. It's more peaceful. It just seems that people are
Or nicer.
more
They're
accepting.
for sure nicer.
For sure nicer.
Yeah. I can
And
see that.
you know, they're suffering. Midwest is suffering. A lot of drugs. A lot of.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
you know what
yeah.
I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of unemployment.
Yeah.
You know, it's
A lot of small towns in Ohio get drilled by the
yeah,
opiate
bro,
epidemic.
Yeah.
drilled. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It is.
Like
It is.
towns are dying from
Yeah.
fentanyl and opioids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
crazy.
There's a lot of it out there.
Yeah, lots.
There's a lot of it out there.
And the treatment isn't what I would consider up to par.
That's, I mean, I think that goes for really anywhere. I think recently it's been changing and growing.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's a huge recovery community.
Oh,
in
there
Ohio.
is. Okay,
yeah.
nice.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. There's a lot out there.
Yeah, we'd love to get plugged into it.
Yeah.
You know, yeah,
absolutely.
we'd love to get plugged into the recovery center in Ohio.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on out there, and even the justice system has evolved from just locking people up
Oh, sure.
to trying to
Yeah.
help them get treatment, because everybody knows. I mean, that's what it was for years.
That's it.
Throw people in prison, you know.
That was their thing.
And it's evolving, and it's getting a lot better.
That's nice. And I know they have a veterans court, I think,
Yeah,
started in Ohio.
there's that. I went through a drug court program myself.
Yeah.
That's what got me to where I'm at today.
Really?
I didn't give up one day and say I want to get sober.
Yeah.
I was the kind of guy that had to be, like, handcuffed and
For
taken
sure.
off the street.
You're my guy. You're my guy.
Yeah,
Right.
I had
Yes.
to be thrown in cuffs. I wasn't
Yeah.
gonna stop. So
Yeah. Well, first, we have to say congratulations and a happy birthday to you because
Yeah.
you just celebrated 8
Eight.
years on
Yeah,
July 3rd.
July 3rd. Yeah.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
that clearly the drug court system
Yeah.
worked for you.
Yeah, it helped a lot, and I'm grateful to be where I'm at today. And I know when I first got sober, I mean, 8 years sounded like an
Sure.
eternity. Like, I didn't even think that was
And how old are you?
possible. I'm 33.
33, so
Very
what,
good.
20?
I don't think you're supposed to ask people. that age.
25,
That's
26
okay.
when you got sober. That's pretty good.
How old do I look?
You look like 26,
Thank you.
27.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. I
You look
appreciate
like
that.
You know
I
what
used
I'm
to
saying?
hate looking young, and
Yeah.
I
No.
really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
good for
sure.
now. I
you.
really appreciate it now.
Good for you, yeah. So talk to us. Let's go back. Childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a small, well-to-do suburban community in
Okay.
Columbus, Ohio. It's called Grandview Heights. My story doesn't include, wanting or needing for anything.
Sure.
Growing up, I had everything I wanted. Hot water didn't get turned off. I
Right.
didn't have hand-me-down clothes. There's always
Yeah.
food on the table, presents for my birthday, presents for Christmas. I had a good childhood. Now, what I will say is my mom suffered from alcoholism. She passed away of an overdose 4 years ago while I was in sobriety. My sister now has just over a year sober. My grandfather died of cirrhosis of the liver.
So it's
Mine
in the
too.
blood.
So yeah, so like it's safe to say that shit runs deep
Yeah.
in
For
my
sure.
blood. And you guys remember Dare?
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Of course.
So like that was my first introduction to like substance misuse and addiction was Dare. And like I was in 5th grade and they came in and they were like, just say no. And I remember like as a kid, that shit terrified me. Like I remember being like, oh my God, if I do this, it's going to ruin my life. And the big thing I took from it was that if I use drugs or abuse alcohol, there's going to be immediate consequences. That, like, I was going to go out and have a drink and get drunk, and the next day of my life was going to be destroyed.
Over, yeah.
And so, like, I was super fearful of drugs and alcohol for a really long time. And then when I moved into high school, Grandview's so small, my graduating class was like 90 people.
Oh, wow.
So we grew up together,
Yeah.
K through 12.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Wow.
you know everyone's life,
Yes.
and you're all best friends.
Yes.
And they'd go out, and they'd drink, and they'd smoke some weed, and they'd come back to school Monday.
Yeah.
And there were no consequences. And I was like, oh, so, like, they lied.
Right.
You know, Dare lied to me. And eventually I caved and went out and, you know, got the ball rolling.
Yeah.
To a party, and it was, quite frankly, amazing. I'm not going to lie to you. I had a lot of good times out there drinking and using.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
And what kind of did you finish high school?
I did. So I was one of those kids that, like, I was smart enough that I didn't have to try, and I could always get like a B.
Sure.
Or a C plus, and that was good enough for me. And I remember after I went to that first party, you know, I think that you can relate to this. Like, we all want to belong.
Of course.
You know, and that's the big thing
Yeah.
inside, is that I want to fit in and I want to belong. And I felt like when I went to that party, that's what happened, because I came back to school Monday and everyone was like, oh, Louis, that party was awesome.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the missing piece.
Wow.
Yeah.
Clearly, this is the missing piece. And, you know, it started like, well, I'll do this, you know, every couple of weeks. I'll go out and party. And then by my junior year, it was just like all bets are off. And I started using like Adderall and smoking weed and drinking. And we had this thing called open lunch at Grandview, which was
Okay.
amazing. We could leave
Yeah.
for an hour. And so, like, the normal kids would go to like McDonald's and Taco Bell and Wendy's, and I'd go out and smoke and get drunk and come back to school. And, you know, that's how I lived all through high school. And, you know, I got into like psychedelics and things like that, and eventually started selling things to feed my habit. It wasn't hard in a community where kids have a lot of money.
Sure.
But no, I graduated, and I applied at one college. I don't know if you guys know of Ohio University, but it is one of the biggest party schools
Totally.
in the country, and
Yep.
that's why I applied there. I didn't think about like what I wanted to do. I was like, well, sweet, it's a party school.
Yeah.
And I you know, I got in at OU, and I was fortunate for that. And the summer of 2009, I was introduced to OxyContin. You know, I went one day to get some weed, and this dude had pills, and I was like, yeah, whatever. I've had no consequences, none up to that point. And I picked up an OxyContin habit pretty much immediately.
Wow.
And of
Tough
course,
not to.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it
No, I
gets a grab on you, especially if you're mentally not right.
Well, and especially if you already have that like ism and gene in you,
yes.
it just pops it off.
Pops
Yeah.
it off, man, and you just that feeling
Yeah.
of safety.
oh, dude,
security.
it took me out of myself
Yeah.
completely. It was
Completely.
the perfect drug.
Yeah, man, just changes you into a whole new person, and you think it's better.
Yeah.
And it might be for the first year or 6 months or
Well,
whatever.
that's the thing, and that's what is so scary about
yeah.
it, is that it's not horrible usually the first time and first couple times, because it's pretty damn euphoric.
Yeah.
usually.
It was great.
Yeah.
The first couple times. I just sit here and lie to you.
No.
Yeah.
It felt fantastic, and it took me out of myself, and that's you know what I wanted. Was
Totally.
To get out of my head. You know, and I started using OxyContin the summer between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college.
Okay.
And I mean, when I say I started using, I mean every day. Like, I had the means.
Oxys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the
crushing
pills
them
were
up?
there. Oh yeah, immediately started snorting them. Damn. And you know, I got down to Ohio University, and I remember getting down there, and that like feeling of belonging and that anxiety, it all came back. You know, I might have been the man in Grandview,
Sure.
right, when I
Yeah.
graduated high school, and I got down to OU, and Louis wasn't the man anymore.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for me to deal with. And I remember calling my dad and like bawling my eyes out, not because I couldn't do my classes. I passed my classes, but because I was just so shook by not being able to fit in
Sure.
and find that place for Louis.
Yeah.
And I ended up dropping out after two quarters.
Shit.
You know, and I look at a lot of people, they don't even have an opportunity to go to college, you know, and I did. I was fortunate, and I squandered it. You know, I walked away because I was uncomfortable. I came back to Columbus, and you know, I sold my parents some bullshit story about how I was going to go to Ohio State eventually. I was never going to do that. It was deep down, I knew that was a lie. I came back and just kept using and selling drugs and doing what Louis wanted to do.
And everyone knew you're selling drugs.
Yeah, I mean,
Which small town?
Yeah,
they had to,
yes,
bro.
yeah,
Whether
yeah.
you thought or not,
Yeah,
it
no,
didn't matter.
they-
You know what I'm saying?
They knew 100%. You know, and I was able to evade legal trouble for a really long time. Around 2011, 2012, when Purdue changed the formula of OxyContin, and this was a huge
yeah.
thing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with
Oh, yeah.
this. It was like this on the streets. It was this big like mythical thing, like, oh, they're gonna do it, and they did. And when they did, the pills disappeared. The prices of the pills that were left shot through the roof, and heroin, like actual heroin, not the fentanyl we see today,
Sure.
but like real heroin, flooded the streets.
Yeah.
And I remember I was sick at work one day, and I tell this story all the time. The first time I used heroin was on the baby changing station at my job on the
shit.
clock. I was working at a burger place, and I was going through withdrawals, and somebody said, "Here, this will make you feel better," and I said, "Thank God." And that was the first time I used heroin.
Wow.
I mean, and that's a total disregard for my life at
Yeah,
that point.
total disregard. And it's not the
How old were
same
you at
black
that time?
tar that they have here. It's a different heroin in the Midwest.
Oh,
Yeah, there was black tar. There was powder form
Powder,
heroin.
the brown powder.
Yeah. I was like 22,
Jesus.
21, 22.
okay. And are you the oldest of your siblings?
I am.
Okay.
Yep. Just me and my sister.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, like once I started using heroin, I mean, it was a pretty quick spiral.
Yeah.
You know, I was in a relationship, lost my girlfriend, lost my job, lost the apartment I was living in. I mean, I lost everything very quickly. Any meaningful relationship I had in my life was destroyed.
Gone.
Yeah.
You know, none of my friends wanted to hang out with me. I
Totally.
couldn't keep $1 in my pocket. I was completely miserable. And, you know, we were talking before this, you know, my mom passing away from an overdose. You know, I don't share this often, and I quite frankly have never shared it publicly, but, you know, I started getting high with mom. And it's funny because I do a lot of speaking in correctional facilities and in communities, and I'll share that, and a lot of people will nod their heads.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I get it. And then there's the people that are like, that's messed up. But it's a part of my story.
For sure. I know
It
a lot
is
of
what it
people.
is,
I know
man.
a lot of people that use with their parents.
We have a lot of people here, mother and father.
Yes.
I had gotten a mother and 3 kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, this is normal stuff now. It's nothing phases us.
Yeah, and the big thing is to talk about it.
Yeah,
And like,
bro.
I had nobody left.
Yeah, man.
There was no one left that wanted to
Yeah.
hang out with me.
Totally. And not only that, but it just goes to show how intense the disease really truly is once it does
No
get a
barriers.
none.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero etiquette.
Yeah.
No etiquette at all.
And when you have it and when it's in you and you are in that space, you will go to any lengths.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
It doesn't matter if it's a relative.
No.
No.
You know, it's just the nature of the beast.
Someone to share the misery with. And,
For
you know,
sure.
She was in it, and I was in it. And,
Completely.
you know, like I said, I had no friends, and mom kind of became my running buddy, best friend when it came to using. And, you
Were
know,
your parents together or split?
they were.
Okay.
They were married. And, you know, dad, Vietnam, got drafted. He was always like
Yeah.
a pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of guy. I mean, I'm so lucky he raised me.
Oh, for sure. I have
did.
the same.
Like, I'm
get it.
very fortunate for that. And the shit that he went through was awful. But like you said, that's what the disease does. I mean, it's a tornado ripping through people's
Oh,
lives.
for sure. And the destruction that we do to the ones that we love is pretty wild. You know?
I think some of the hardest things, or one of the hardest things I've done in recovery, I've spoken to parents of children who are addicted or who have passed away from the disease or in recovery. And when I do that, when I speak to these parents, you know, I think back to like the damage I caused and like watching them suffer
Yeah.
because of what their kids are doing it's really difficult to see.
Oh, for sure. And it's one of those things where I try to say it often because it's one of those things where, as we all know, like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And it's probably has to be the most helpless feeling for a parent, especially because they can't get their child or loved one well. Like you can't do it. We all have to do it ourselves. And that I think is what's so scary about our disease. It's not like where you can bring someone to the doctor and you start your chemotherapy and it's like you help them because you're taking them to the hospital or to their doctor's appointment and then they receive the treatment. It's like, no, we have to individually have that willingness to do all of the things that require to maintain and get sober in the first place. And I think that's what's a really hard pill to swallow because parents especially, I feel like, want to fix their children, you know?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? I went through it in reverse with my mom. Like,
oh my God, for sure.
I got sober and mom was still using and I could not save her. You know, I tried everything, lead the horse to water.
Yep.
And ultimately there was nothing that I could do. I was completely powerless over the situation.
And how was your dad
what a weird
during this?
feeling. Like I'm having a weird feeling right now thinking, let's put myself in that situation. My mom or my brother, you know, I mean, the helplessness, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, fortunately for me, like, you know, being in recovery, I understand the disease.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's still really difficult to watch knowing there's nothing you can do.
And that's for coming from someone that understands the disease and knows like the powerlessness that it has over the individual, and you having that compassion and empathy, knowing like how hard it is and how you won't be able to initially like save her.
I would lose my mind if I like tried to control the entire situation. I would go insane
for sure.
You know, and you know, you see that with a lot of families. You know, trying to I'll send them here, I'll do this, I'll do that. They're not ready. That's it. It's the bottom line. You know,
it's scary. And your dad I guess let's back up to your sobriety. What took you to where you are today? Like, how did you come to the point where you were like, enough is enough, and I'm going to start to change? Yeah.
So I, like I said, I got into heroin and things got bad really quick. I had avoided legal consequences for quite some time. Eventually I did get arrested, and I remember prior to that, I went to a place where people in recovery go, and I listened to a guy speak, right, and tell a story, kind of like what I'm doing today. And he was up there, he was telling his story, and afterwards, I was still using at the time.
Okay.
I went up to him and I was like, hey man, really great story, like really appreciate you, but I haven't had any legal consequences, because my problem is I think I'm the smartest guy in the room. Like, I can outmaneuver you, I can outthink you, you know.
You have all the answers.
I got all the answers, I'll get out of it. This guy's an idiot, right? That's what I'm thinking. He's an idiot. He got arrested. What did he do wrong? And so, you know, I told him that I'd had no legal consequences, and he was like, keep doing what you're doing and it'll come. And I remember walking out of the room like, that guy's a moron. He doesn't know who I am. Does he know Louis? Are you kidding me? And eventually I'd get arrested, and like the revolving door of jail, you know, they always say like, once you get the first one, the floodgates open. And they did, man. I got arrested for felony drug possession, and conveyance. They found the drugs on me after I got booked into the jail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like I went for a misdemeanor, and I remember they pulled that bag out and like dangled it in front of me, and I was like, oh my God, like that's 2 felonies. That is going to change my life forever. And I just, you know, I'd get out, I'd do a month, I'd do a couple weeks, I'd do 3 months, you know, I'd get arrested for like petty thefts and like I'd do shoplifting and things like that. And, you know, in and out. And eventually I got to the point where I just did not care about myself anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't care what happened. I was like passively suicidal.
Sure.
It's like I was too much of a coward to do it myself. But like if I overdosed or got like hit by a bus or like I was fine with me, or went to prison. Like I just didn't care.
Yeah.
You know, at all about my life. And, you know, like I said, I was the guy that had to be handcuffed and taken off the streets to stop. And eventually, you know, the accumulation of all the charges, I ended up with 2 more felonies. I ended up homeless. So I was living with my parents, and like I said, I put my dad through hell. But he finally kicked me out, and that was like the best thing
For sure.
that ever could have happened. And I had 4 felony warrants. They picked me up, and I went back to jail. And I was facing like 5 years in prison. And I went to court, and the judge was like, Mr. Essig, we're going to give you probation today, but if you violate your probation, we are going to send you to prison for the maximum amount of time possible. And I was terrified. That's a terrifying feeling. 5 years is a long time.
Very long. And how old were you?
At this point, I was 25, and I wasn't ready to stop. I always say, like, I wanted to kill myself. I was too much of a coward, and I wanted to get clean, but I did not know how.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to get sober. And I went back to the holding cell after the judge said that, and my wonderful public defender, because I could never afford an attorney, I was like, hey, man, like, can you, like, go back out there and get me some help? It was the first time I asked for help. I'd never been to treatment. Never have I ever been to treatment. I'd always just went to jail. And I said, hey, man, can you give me some help? He said, let me see what I can do. And they got me in this special docket drug court program, which ultimately...
It's not easy.
No.
No.
It's
A lot of hoops.
Oh my God.
Yeah, man.
And I remember they gave me this like pamphlet for the program. So like I go back to my tank at the county, and I'm reading through it with these guys, and it's like, do a drug test 3 to 5 times a week. Go to court and see the judge every single Tuesday. Go see your probation officer every Thursday. Do intensive outpatient. See a therapist. And I'm like flipping through this thing, and they're like, you're an idiot, dude. Why'd you take this program? You could have just taken probation. And like, I'm like, yeah, like how in the hell am I going to do this? I had no idea how I was going to get through it. And I got released. Part of the deal was house arrest. I sat in the county for 5 months that time. I got out, and I lasted 3 days before I used again. And, that time I used almost killed me. I was alone in the house. It was like 7 a.m. on a Friday, and I played this thing called the drug test game. It's where if you use at 7 a.m. on a Friday and you drink a shitload of water over the weekend, hopefully by Monday, it'll be out of my system. But I didn't think about any other consequences other than the fact that if I drop dirty, I'm going back to jail.
Right.
And I used, and it was heroin. And, I did it in the upstairs bathroom, and somehow I got outside to smoke a cigarette, and I fell flat on my face in the front lawn. And the neighbors found me. And, I don't get out of that house, and I'm not sitting here with you guys today. I die in that house. I think about that often. I'm very fortunate for that.
Wow. And then what happened, because you were on probation at that time for drug court, right?
Yeah.
So then does that mean that you...
The beautiful thing about drug court is they care. At least I'll speak on my judge.
Yeah.
And the program I was in, they truly care. And I ended up going back to jail for like 3 weeks on that, and they gave me another chance. And
wow.
I got out, and I was very angry at the time because I still didn't want to get clean. But I said, you know what? I'm going to check all your boxes. But I did it begrudgingly, and it was miserable. Just white knuckling it.
Sure.
And I lasted 6 months doing that. And anybody I met in recovery that tried to help me, I'd sit there and try and look as pissed off as possible, like sit in the corner.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't want to talk to you. I'd end up relapsing again, and then finally they sent me back for another 6 months, and I decided I was going to start taking suggestions. And that's when things changed for me, is when I became open-minded and willing to take suggestions from other people.
Yeah.
So like if the judge is telling me like go to recovery meetings, right? Maybe it's because he knows. Maybe he's seen 20,000 guys just like me in his courtroom, and he knows better than me. Or if the guy with 30 years sober says do X, Y, and Z, well, maybe that's because he did it and he has 30 years sober.
Right.
And that's when things started to change. Like that was really the turning point.
You got to be open-minded. If you're not open, there's no growth or there's no change.
Yeah, you have to come to a point where you realize that you running the show ain't working out.
Well, even if you do run the show, I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, running it, but you still need advice. You need mentors. You need people in your life, because no one person could make the great decision all the time. You need people.
True. But I think when it comes to like program, it's a clear testament that everybody that is in any type of recovery
Following
meeting,
it properly.
right?
Yeah.
Clearly, them running the show
Does not work.
put them in that meeting
Yeah.
to
You're right.
begin with.
It'd be right there.
And so it's like, maybe it's time that you might listen to some.
someone Yeah.
Anytime I came up with a solution, I ended up in handcuffs.
Yeah.
man.
For sure.
You know, or in a miserable spot, homeless, sleeping in the woods, strung out. Like, you know, and one of the things that I do in my community, like I said, I come from a nice suburban community. I try to let people know, like, it can happen here, because a lot of people try to, like, hide it.
Of course.
Or the stigma of it with the families. Like,
Yes.
oh, my son's a drug addict.
Totally.
And so, like, I'll speak to these parents and be like, listen, guys, this is what happened to me. I'm just like your kid.
Yes.
You know, I played on the football team.
Yes.
You know, I got into college. You know, I had a good upbringing. I still ended up homeless and doing time in jail. You know, it can happen anywhere. It does not discriminate.
That's what I say too. I think it's so important, and I love that you share that, because obviously looking at you today, like, I could never fathom, just by obviously our conversation before we hopped on, and then now having you on, it's like a great testament to showcase you coming from a great home, a good family, and it does not matter. Like I always say, it doesn't matter how you were raised, whether you had great parents, whether you didn't have good parents. If you were, it's just, you either have it or you don't. And if you don't, or if you do, it takes you to the depths of hell.
Yeah. I you know, after I got sober, I'm like kind of an intense guy.
Sure.
I'm like a huge go-getter, and you know, I focused a lot on rebuilding my life, and you know, part of that was doing recovery every single day.
Sure.
I mean, there's things I have to do every single day
Same.
to make sure that I stay sober.
And I'm on the even playing field as other normies.
Yeah. And the thing is too, like, if I don't do those things, right, I might not drink or use that day, but there's a good chance I'm going to be an asshole. You're not going to hang out with Louis.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know, once I got some time under my belt, a couple of years, I was working in fine dining, and like I said, I have a criminal background, so like,
how was that getting back in the workforce?
It's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the first job I had, I worked at a pizza place, and I remember I was making $7.25 an hour, and I remember being so grateful that someone even hired me.
Sure.
And you know, so like I said, I'm a go-getter. I work my ass off. And I went for a management position, and they denied me that position because I'm a felon. And like, think about that. I can't run a pizza shop because of my felonies.
Right.
I mean, that's insane.
I know.
Like, people need to understand that, like, change is possible. And
For
like,
sure.
that's not Louis anymore.
Right.
You know? So I dealt with barriers. I dealt with barriers finding places to live.
Right.
Like I remember when I started looking for apartments, it got to the point where I'd go to look at an apartment. The guy who was showing it to me, I wouldn't even waste my time. I'd be like, "Do you rent to felons?" He'd be like, "No." I'd be like, "All right, cool. Have a good day." And I just walk out and on to the next. Like, I ran into so many situations like that, and it got discouraging.
Of course.
You know. And once I got into fine dining, you know, you work at a nice restaurant, you're a good server. You can tell I'm a talker. I'm a sales guy.
Yeah.
I was making good money. And this was 2020, and COVID happened. So I had worked my way up, and I went into work one night, and we watched Governor DeWine shut down all the restaurants in Ohio. And I was just like, you know, I worked so hard to get to this point,
Yep.
and now it's gone. And what do you do now?
Yeah.
You know, it was scary, and that's when for me, I had to like double down on my recovery. It was terrifying, and I talked about that drug court program and the judge and how absolutely amazing they were. You know, they would tell me, anything you need, come back. And a lot of people look at like judges and probation officers as like enemies, right?
Yeah.
Oh, they sent me to prison.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, no, I'm going to make these guys my allies.
Smart.
And so when I lost my job, I went to my judge and I said, hey, do you think I could go back and work at that correctional facility that I was incarcerated at? And he said, I'll write you a reference letter. And he did. And I went for an interview, and they hired me.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Good for you.
Yeah. And you know what I took away from that experience, I worked there for 2 years. I started as like a standard CO and worked my way up to a supervisor. And by the time I was a supervisor, I ran the unit that I used to live on, and I supervised the COs in that facility.
That's crazy.
It was absolutely bizarre, but my lived experience changed the way those inmates looked at me. You know, I'm not a big guy. I mean, look at me. I feel small right now. Look at you. You guys are jacked. You guys are working out every day. You know, I wasn't a big guy, but the respect I got because I had walked in their shoes.
Totally. You're one of them.
It changed everything, you know, and I got to have these conversations with guys that were so important, you know, and to help change lives. And I kind of, I'm not gonna, I guess I got addicted to that, like helping, and like, it was so much fun. Like, it was so much fun to work at that facility.
Well, it feeds your soul because the 12th step is to give back what was so freely given to you. And so in a sense, without it being program wise, because it was your job, you're giving those inmates a sign of hope because you're just like one of them. And look at you now. Now you're working at the facility that once incarcerated you.
I know.
Like, that's bizarre and wild.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And like you said, I can't keep it unless I give it away. And, you know, so I did that for a couple of years, and, you know, I would run recovery meetings, and I was very hands-on. I mean, there would be times that, like, really big guys, like your size, would be flipping out.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not a big guy, and I don't have to go in there and put my hands on them, but I could just be like, dude, what are you doing? You know, and they respected that so much. I could de-escalate situations better than other staff.
But that's your
members.
character too. That's your personality.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it did help the personality combined with the lived experience. But, you know, I have these moments all the time. I mean, I had it on the plane on the way out here where I don't know, I was like looking at my feet and I was like, how did you end up here? It's unbelievable. You know, I don't know if you experienced that. Like, I end up in places and it just hits you at random times. And you're like, oh my God, I shouldn't even be sitting here right now.
For sure.
It was amazing, and it was a lot of fun. And I, like I said, I started doing speaking events in the community. I work with a nonprofit called Start Talking Grandview, and I speak in the high school that I graduated from,
for you.
to the 8th graders and 10th graders.
Yeah, because Dare kind of put this weird thought pattern and set you on this weird misconception, I guess, of what drugs and alcohol could possibly do, where it's like, it's not so much just say no. It's like, anything for the first time, it's not like your life is going to be wrecked with how you thought. So for you to have the lived experience and then go back and give back to those like middle school and high school is letting them know the actual facts behind of what can happen and what it can lead to. And it's like, this might be amazing for a little bit, but let me tell you what happens.
Yeah. And, you know, it's not like a scared straight thing.
Right, of course.
It's not like me coming in. Like, I'll show my 8th grade photo, which I had like a Justin Bieber haircut.
Oh my God, amazing.
So
I could totally see it.
So
I
look so funny.
Yeah.
And then I'll show like my mugshot, like one of my worst mugshots. And it's not so much like to scare them straight. It's like, hey guys, like, you may or may not be susceptible to this disease, but consider it.
And be aware, be cognizant, because it exists. And sometimes a lot of us don't know that we have it. So it's good to have that knowledge, because I always think knowledge is power. So going into it, it will spark some of those kids to have the wherewithal after, say, a couple times, perhaps. Some, not all.
So,
not
it's
all.
tough. I mean, I'm thinking here, like, how much do you want to talk to a kid and say, you know, don't do this, but they're always going to try it once.
Yeah.
Of course.
And they get that feeling, and they want that feeling again.
But then look at you then speak to the kids like my husband, like Jonathan, right?
Yeah.
He's so logical. His brain is so logical thinking, where like he drank when he was in college, but he did the whole program. He was actually one of the kids that did the do you guys remember? I don't know if they did at your high school, but they did where they like shut down and it was for a week. I can't remember what it was called, but they basically have this whole scene of a DUI driver, and they have the characters, and Jonathan was the kid that ended up dying from a drunk driver, and they set up like a funeral and the whole get down. Yeah. But it's more of like a scared straight type thing, you know? Yeah. But because his brain is always thinking a little bit differently than I would say mine, that he still had the wherewithal of what this liquid that you can go and buy at a grocery store or a liquor store can do to people's lives that he decided at an early age in college, this is actually not good for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to do this. But it's because of having kind of a different thought pattern. And this is like, to the alcoholic, perhaps it wouldn't work the same. But to those kids that aren't and don't go down this continuous rabbit hole, it's good. It's good to have the podcast and like your podcast that you just started.
It's good to have the knowledge.
It's good to have the conversations of what can happen. And especially, it's a good thing to know, especially if you have it in your genes, because I do believe that it is in some families in their genetics.
100%.
I never got to meet my grandfather because he died when my dad was 16 of cirrhosis of the liver. And so it's like, that shit is real. I know people have the conversation of whether or not it is or not, it isn't, but it's good to have conversations like that where I feel our age range, the stigma was very much shh. Like, you don't talk about it because this is a disease. It's just like anything else. It's treatable. There's a solution. So we're like the lucky ones that we can do something about it, but you can't do anything about something if you're not talking about it because people don't know where to go. People don't know what to do. People aren't aware, and then they get scared to even ask because it's so taboo or it's so stigmatized or you seem like a weak person. All the things that went through my head, you know.
I'll always like walk the kids through, and I heard something early in recovery that I love. It's that, you know, not drinking and using gives you a competitive edge in life. And I remember hearing that, and I was like, oh my God, like, I'm a huge competitor. I hate losing.
Same.
It's just, it's how I'm wired.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that, and I was like, oh my God, a competitive edge in life. Like, what does that mean? And, you know, I found out what that meant. You know, I'm more alert, right?
Totally.
I'm present.
Yes.
Most importantly, I'm present.
Yes.
You know, I try to be present wherever I go. And it does allow me to perform on a larger level in life. And so when I talk to these kids, you know, I'll point at one of them and be like, hey, man, so, you know, you have an interview Monday and you went out Sunday night and you got hammered and you wake up Monday and you're all hungover. And this guy over here, he did not do that, right? And you both go for this interview. Who's going to perform better? The guy who didn't get drunk.
Yep.
You know? And I'll say things like, you know, this guy right here, he got a college degree. He doesn't drink and use, right? And he's going for a job, and you did, and you have felonies, right? And who's going to get the job? The guy who did it right. And I'll just share those scenarios with them so that it's something to think about.
For sure.
You know, at least if they do go out and drink, maybe that's in the back of their head. A seed has been planted. Like,
exactly. That's all you can do.
Take it easy. You know,
it's all about planting just little seeds for people to ponder, to wonder on. Because when you say like the competitive advantage, I think that you're absolutely right. I feel, especially in this day and age, we already have, life is already hard. Life is hard for every really single individual. I don't care who you are. We have, life is on life's terms. It's happening regardless of what we would like it to be. And so you have to be able to take in certain things that are out of your control on any given moment, on any given day. And so if you're hungover or intoxicated, you're not going to be able to handle certain situations, or people can't depend on you because you're not even ready. Yeah. So it's like, I love 511's little thing, always be ready, because it's true. It's like, it's game time. And I feel like it's something that, because my husband's a normie, so I use him as an example all the time. He doesn't drink or use. I mean, I know he doesn't because I say because of me, but he hates when I say that because he wouldn't be drinking regardless if he was with me or not because of the competitive advantage.
Yep.
You know, he takes things very seriously. So why would he waste the calories, your brain capacity, the bandwidth?
Yeah, exactly.
Just like the next day having to recover. It's unnecessary things that you're putting exactly.
Yeah, it slows you down. And you know, everybody, you know, recovery for me has been amazing, right? There's been beautiful moments and amazing moments. And like I said, those moments where you're like, how the hell am I here? In a good way. And, you know, on the other side of that coin, you mentioned it, life on life's terms.
Yeah.
Like, I watched my mother die in recovery, you know? And so what did I do the very next day? I have a service commitment at that same correctional facility. I no longer work there, but I'll bring recovery meetings in. I took my ass into that correctional facility, ran that meeting. I cried in
Of
front
course.
of those dudes. But like that's
that's
what
what you
recovery
needed.
is. Exactly. You know, and my dad passed away from cancer a year ago, you know, and at 33,
Sorry.
yeah, at 33, no parents. Didn't see that one in the playbook.
Wow.
But you know, the silver lining there is this. When he got sick and he ended up in the hospital, right? If I'm out there drinking and using still, what's going to come first? The drugs and the alcohol are going to come before I go sit in the hospital with him, you know? And I didn't have to do that. I got to be present with him. I got to sit by his bedside.
Yeah.
I dealt with the estate. I dealt with cleaning out the apartment. I mean, I handled all of that. If I'm drinking and using, that is a nightmare. And don't get me wrong, like it was awful. Like I love my dad. He was amazing. But the fact that I got to be present during all that was the silver lining.
And you were able to handle business and be the man that your dad would be proud of and the man that he raised. And that's what it's about. And that's what recovery gave you. I mean, that to me.
Could you imagine with living with your dad dying alone? You don't really get over that. You know, his dad didn't die alone. That's a big thing, man.
Yeah.
That's a big fucking thing.
Yeah. And he was present and he was there
man.
to handle all the things that people forget to think about.
Those regrets you don't get over.
Yeah.
Or those,
yes,
you might live with them, but you never get over it.
Right.
I mean, that's, you know, as awful as the situation was, like, that was a gift that
For
recovery
sure.
gave me.
Totally, man.
And
totally.
for your dad too.
I know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he had to walk through a lot of
Bad times.
Bad times, but during the last little bit of time he had
Somewhat peace.
Yeah, he got to watch me. He got to watch me get sober.
Yeah,
you know,
man.
for 7 years before
Totally.
he passed, and he got to watch my sister get sober. And I don't think
And
there's
that's a
much
gift.
more than that he could ask for. And like I said, to be there for that was definitely a gift. And don't get me wrong, like it was challenging.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine. My
know,
parents are my everything, so
It was challenging.
It's hard for me to even
I know.
talk
Imagine it.
about because it's a lot. It's heavy.
Well, I can't stop.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like I got to keep doing what I do, and like it's interesting. After he passed, is when I got the idea to do a podcast as well.
Yeah.
And like one of the really cool things that I get to do is a lot of the guys. So I work hands on with the guys who are incarcerated at that facility. They get out and like they can contact me.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
I'll meet up with them and I'll talk to them and I'll take them to recovery meetings. I'll pick them up. You know, I'm there. I'm the giving hand.
Yeah.
And, you know, I get to bring them on, which is just, I mean, think about that timeline. Like I was locked up there. I worked there, right? These guys are now incarcerated there. I leave, but I'm still connected. And now they get to come on to my podcast and tell their story. How fucking cool is that?
Sick.
Like,
That's the
that's what
gifts.
it's all about.
That's the promises.
Yeah.
That I love hearing stuff like that just because it is another testament of if you work it, it works.
That's the dream.
It
you
is.
know?
But ultimately, I think the real dream, or at least what I have found out,
Yeah.
is that it's peace of mind
Yeah.
and not wanting to escape myself. You know, it's like that's kind of what I was searching for forever, and the drug and the alcohol. And then once you kind of work the program, because you're having to do a lot of looking at a lot of internal work, and you're realizing a lot of selfish characteristics and insecurities and all those things that we don't like to acknowledge or look at, and it makes you become really self-aware. And then obviously the give back, and it ends up selfishly in a way, it feeds you.
I mean, let's be honest. Like for me, sitting here with you guys today and talking about it, it's probably going to keep me sober today.
For sure. For sure. And me too.
Guaranteed.
And me too.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
You know, and like I can.
And for people to hear your story and how you went through 2 losses of 2 parents in recovery, that alone is hope to somebody out there that is struggling, because that is hard.
Those are big
That is
things.
heavy.
Yeah,
Those are
man.
big. And for you to be able to say that out loud on social, that's the beauty. Like there's so many pros and cons to social media, but a beauty and a pro is that somebody hearing, wow, if he can do it, I can too.
Exactly.
You know?
I always tell people, man, if a junkie like me
Fuck yeah.
can do it, I promise you can do it. And you know, I can confidently say, like, I love Louis today. You know, like I'm very authentic wherever I go. It doesn't matter who I meet. Like you're gonna get Louis. You know, you're not gonna get anybody else. We're chameleons.
Yes.
Right. And so I
Yes.
can walk into many different rooms with many different people, and I can blend in. You know, I did that for so many years, like, you know, because I wanted to be accepted.
Of course.
And I don't have to do that anymore. You know, I can just be Louis, and that's good enough. And if you love me, great. And if you don't, you know, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's
sorry
okay
for
too.
you.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
You know?
Doesn't bother me one bit.
Yeah.
That's something you have to deal with. But yeah, life is it's incredible, you know.
What made you want to start your podcast?
So like I always wanted to do it. Like for so many years I said to myself, like, you know, you're meant for something bigger.
Yeah.
And
I get that.
I didn't know what it was. It's like this weird feeling deep down. And, you know, I got to a point, you know, maybe when I was 4 or 5 years sober. And, you know, after I got the job at the correctional facility too, which was insane. I never expected
Yeah,
that.
that's
I was
wild.
like, let's remove the ceiling. Let's get rid of the limits, right? Let's shoot our shot wherever we go. And, you know, I talk about fear, right? And I've watched fear hold so many people back.
Oh, yeah.
Fear of getting turned down, fear of rejection, you know, fear of not being successful. And I always think to myself, like, I went through real life scary shit.
Totally.
Like, I've had guns put to my head. I've been in like really scary situations. Why should I be afraid of like a job interview? I should be grateful to have a job interview. And so like I thought about this podcast thing, and my dad passed away, and it just like hit me. I was like, this is a great platform to let people come on and share their stories,
Sure.
right? So they get to share their stories, which helps them. Other people get to see their stories, right? And the whole goal here is to remove the stigma.
Yeah.
Like, you know, some of what we do are crazy war stories
Sure.
from when we were out there drinking and using. I have plenty of them. But you hear those and you see them come through on the other side, and a normie, like you said, might watch that and be like, wow, you know, that's incredible. And it might change the way you look at drug addicts
Completely.
or alcoholics. You know, I had a guy at my last job come up to me and he goes, Louis, I look at homeless people differently now because of you. And that felt so amazing. Like, so now when he sees that guy on the corner, he doesn't look at him like he's failed at life or, you know, he's struggling, and there's still a human being in there. You know, I was that guy, man, flying a sign.
Yeah.
And so like ultimately that's why I started the podcast. It's called Get a Grip, and the whole thought behind that name is like, come on guys, wake up, like get a grip.
I like it.
Like look at this and let's be serious and let's talk about it and let's not judge people. And it's been a lot of fun, like to bring guys on from the correctional facility that I saw incarcerated that get out, get sober, get to tell their stories is so fulfilling. You know, it's really cool.
Yeah. I like the name.
Yeah. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
I like that he went back to the correctional institute that he was at, and he looped it in with the podcast, because it's hard to get a podcast. It's hard to get people on the podcast.
Yeah, it's smart.
It's hard to start. So at least he started something with the jail guys.
Well, this is the thing that I think also too that gets looked over is not all, of course. I speak in the sense of there's always going to be your outliers in every little thing, in every place, in every stereotype, in every corporation, job, whatever it is. But usually the addict or alcoholic, they are so driven once they maintain and get on the right path.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are going to, I would love to employ, because
yeah.
their work ethic usually is
Above average.
yes.
We're above average earners.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
take a chance.
Huh?
You always take a chance, shoot your pants.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure. That's what I'm saying.
And anything you take a chance, shoot your
yeah.
pants. It doesn't matter.
Oh, I've seen the flip side of the coin
Yeah,
too.
Me too.
Like,
That's why I said it's not always.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's. But the ones that you do see like excel.
but you got to look at both sides, right? You can't just look at the guys who fail.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
And a lot of people
Of course.
do that.
And they
like,
do.
You know, oh, this guy, I'll never hire someone like that again. Mm-hmm. You know, and I always think like, you know, there's a lot of ways to be of service. My last job, I was the only felon in the office, right? And to come in there and perform the way I did at this sales job, hopefully change the way they look at people like us.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a criminal record, addiction, to see me come in and succeed, hopefully opens their minds so that the next guy gets a shot.
Sure.
You know, and that's what it's all about.
And it's also seizing the opportunities when you do get that shot.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and making sure that you don't mess it up.
I mean, I'm setting an example anywhere I go. That's
Right.
how I look at it.
Totally.
You know?
I feel the same way, where it's very much hoping to you either make it or break it for everybody else that's following.
Yeah.
Because those people that are either employing or giving you that break or that shot are like you said, Shane, like taking a chance.
Yeah.
Because it is true, because the pendulum can definitely swing
Oh, yeah.
really bad the other way. But it also can swing right back to soaring.
I worked at a hotel for a while, and I'd get guys that just were fresh out of jail jobs. And I mean, you know, honestly, I probably got 12 guys jobs, and like 11 of them got fired, but one made it, you know, and you're right, man. That's the truth.
I know
life.
it is.
Yes.
Life, yeah.
That
No reason to
is-
beat around the bush.
No,
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
truth.
it's not easy.
But it also just goes to show, like, regardless of if you have the ism or not, life in general, you got to be relentless.
You got to.
You got to have perseverance with anything that you do or anything that you want, because 9 out of 10 times you're going to get told no, you're going to fail, and you're going to fall down. Nothing is going to hit on the first try, and that's okay. You have to keep going. And like you said, fear is huge, because it really it stifles people, because they don't want to either step outside the box and take that chance because they're scared to fail. Where, like, in this stage in the game in my life, I shoot every shot because
Yeah.
I failed so many times that I don't care, because I know that I can get right back up, because I have. So it's like, what do I have to lose?
Yep.
What, a little bit of maybe embarrassment, but
Maybe.
maybe,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And like, I look at more so, why not?
Yeah.
Like,
What can I gain?
yeah. And, or like, I'm going to either stay whatever it is, remain the same,
Yeah.
and do nothing about it,
Yeah.
and still have this like pondering thought of
What if?
woulda, coulda, shoulda,
Yeah.
or maybe, and this, that, or the other, or shoot your shot, and then you get told no, and then it's like, okay, cool, on to the next.
I mean, yeah, like you said, I've been told no so many times.
Dude,
Who gives a shit?
I look at it like how we were talking before. I went on so many auditions before I actually made it into the WWE one, which changed the whole entire trajectory of my life. If I let the first 100 no's stop me, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So I never let that deter me from keeping on going.
Yeah.
It was just,
And I'll be super cliche, but you know, fear, face everything, and
oh yeah,
recover,
no, Chad says it all the time.
you know, and that's 100% the truth. And I've watched normies that I just look at people differently with a little more empathy and
Sure.
compassion and grace. And I, like, everything that's happened to me has been perfect. You know, all the bad things, all the good things landed me right here in the seat today.
Yeah.
And I would not change any of it for the world. I mean, what, we were talking before the show,
Yeah.
what drug addict like me, I mean, I was an IV drug user.
Yeah.
I was shooting heroin,
Totally.
cocaine, crack, you know, you name it. You know, I was bad off. I just flew out to California to sit here with you guys, and I'm about to hop a flight to Vegas.
And you just came back from Miami.
Yeah.
Don't forget that.
Like, what?
Like, who are you?
What? Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable.
Totally.
You know, and I, you know, I always tell people, like, you can do anything, you know,
know.
if you get after it. And that fear, man, that's the key. It holds
is
so
the
many
killer.
people.
It is a killer.
God.
Even when you have it, the fear of losing it could
Yeah,
paralyze you.
that too.
You get fucked up.
I mean, I always, I struggled a lot with that one. That's a good one to bring
Yeah.
up, because I did, but I look at it more so like this. God didn't bring me this far to drop me. Stay on the grind
Yes,
and put in the work. Put in the work. That's the thing, is like, if God was a genie it'd be amazing. But he's not. You have to put in the footwork with anything, you know, regardless of what that is, whether it's the gym, whether it's your food, you know, it doesn't matter. Whether your marriage, relationships, it's very much action based. Everything
All of
that
it.
we want.
I
Life.
love that.
What's next for you, man?
I mean, who knows? You know, I obviously the goal is to grow the podcast, and like, you know, I would love for that to be what I do.
Sure.
But I also have to be realistic.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a sales guy. Looking to start another sales job here soon, which again is a huge step up from where I was. I can't tell you 100% what's next, but I know that, like you said, my higher power hasn't failed me yet.
Totally. He brought you this far. He ain't gonna drop you.
I'll end up right where I'm supposed to be, and the fact
In the perfect time.
that you brought up action. I am like a psycho when it comes to action.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously, like, yes, there's something greater than me that's guiding me. But if I lock myself in a closet, right, okay, and I sit there and I pray, I said, please,
Yes.
please send me a hot dog.
Yeah.
It's not coming through the
No,
table.
I'm with you.
It's not coming.
No.
You know, I
Yeah.
got to get up and do something.
I gotta make a call. I gotta something.
Yeah. I want a job. I got to apply. I got to go to interviews.
Totally.
You know, you're right. You want to go to the gym, better get your ass up and go to the gym.
I know, totally.
I should get my ass up and go to the gym. Okay? Try to put some pounds on, some LBs.
But that's the thing is like, and you know, I'm human just like everybody else, and sometimes it's just like you have like the fuck it's in your head where you don't want to put in the action because you're having an off day, you're tired.
Yeah.
All of the things that happen, and like that's okay. I let myself, if certain things happen in life and I get in those feelings, I allow myself 24 hours to basically be a little bitch and to be a pussy. And then after that, then it's like, what are you going to do about it?
Yep.
You got to move.
And you got to surround
Do
yourself
something.
with people who
Yes,
are going to
that
call
is
you out
really, really important.
on that shit.
Yes.
You know, I don't want to be around people that are going to co-sign me doing the wrong thing.
So good that you brought that up because that is very important. You can't have the yes men or the people that are wanting you to be on their level because they don't want to do action in their lives. So they're like, you know what, Louis, don't go to the gym today.
Yeah.
You're good.
Let's hang out and play video games.
Yes. Let's
You know?
exactly. Like you don't need to go to that job interview. You don't need to go to that meeting. You don't need to give back over here. Or you know what I'm saying? You want the people around you being like, "Yo, where you at?
Authentic.
Where you at?" You know, stuff like that. I think that's important. And it's so crazy because we hear it all the time and they're all cliche sayings, but they're all cliche sayings because they're true.
Yeah.
They work. They've been around for fucking
Forever.
1,000 years.
Forever.
1,000 years.
Yep.
Yeah. I used to
Yeah.
get annoyed of hearing them all the time, especially in meetings. I would
Especially
just
from
be
your
like,
parents,
"Oh."
though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
know.
I could sit here and regurgitate a bunch of
Oh,
bullshit
for
to you guys and I could sound amazing. You know,
Sure.
regurgitating cliches,
Right?
but they're true.
And that's the thing. And that's why they exist. And that's why they continue on. You know, people know them and people repeat them and people tell others is because,
They're real.
yeah,
They're real.
We're fortunate.
we are. We're
very.
the lucky ones.
Yeah, man.
You know.
It's crazy.
We're fortunate, and you know, you guys having me out, you know, on a whim. You know, I just hit you up on Instagram and said,
That's
hey,
the beauty of social media.
here's my story. You know, and I always tell people I'm not unique. You know, I'm just
Yeah.
an alcoholic.
Yep.
You know, and everybody has their own experience, and for you guys to bring me out is super cool.
Oh, our pleasure.
Oh my God, of
Our
course. Like, you're amazing.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
appreciate
like,
that.
congratulations with where you're at, what you've gone through.
Where he's going.
And where you're
Yeah,
going.
man.
Exactly. Because
We'll see.
you definitely are.
He's on the right path.
I'm just trying.
He's young and on the right
That's
path,
it.
and he's saving lives. He's
You're-
helping people. He's giving hope.
Yep.
He's giving hope to everybody.
Yep.
And Lord knows fucking this world needs it.
I love it.
You're not kidding.
Man,
I
you're
really
kidding.
do.
Thanks, brother.
The world does.
Yeah,
World
thank you
does
so
need it.
much
Yeah,
for
appreciate
coming
it.
on and sharing your story and
Yeah.
doing what you're doing. And, you know, on our end, we'll definitely make sure we promote your podcast too.
Fuck yeah.
So that you can,
Thank you.
Hell
you
yeah.
can continue on. Get a grip. Get a grip.
Get a grip.
Get
Get
a
a grip.
Get a
Get a grip,
fucking
bitch.
grip.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Yeah.
I love it. It's
not easy.
It's so good.
It's not fucking easy.
It's not. But it's
What are you doing in Vegas?
So, you know, I still have my vices.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Of course,
I,
you don't gamble.
I like gambling.
Yeah, nice.
It's like 120 degrees out there.
Yeah,
I was
it
gonna
is.
get a little pool action. I've got a nice base tan from Miami. So
There you go.
I mean, I'm just gonna go relax. I figured, it's a 50-minute flight.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can do a pool, you can do shows, you have a ton of places to eat, and then obviously gambling is great.
I never thought, one of my biggest like reservations when I got sober, I was like, how am I gonna like go to a beach and not have a drink? Or how am I gonna go to Las Vegas? and not, like, do a bunch of cocaine.
No, I know.
And, like,
that was mine too.
like, and then like I've been to Vegas before, and I found that for me, I'm speak for myself.
Yes.
I had a shitload of fun. I went to the Bahamas in April with some of my former coworkers, right? I'll tell this story very quickly, but everyone I went with drank. Okay, right? Which is fine.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
And we went to Nassau. We were at a beautiful resort, Baha Mar.
Bomb.
And yeah, amazing. And everyone was hitting me up like, Louis, where you at? Where you at? Oh, they all sat by the pool and drank for like 4 days. I was one of 2 people out of 25 that left the resort. I went to a private island and fed the pigs. I went snorkeling. I went down to the fish fry. Yeah, exactly. And I was present for every single moment of it. And like after everything we got in the airplane on the way back, I was like, man, I really did it right.
Yeah, you did.
And it's such a cool gift that I've been given. So
For sure. We'll have a blast in Vegas.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'll try not to lose my ass.
I'm like, don't do anything I want to do, which is not very much, but you'll have a blast.
Yeah, bro, enjoy.
Yeah.
Happy for you, man.
Yeah.
Really
You guys
happy
are
for you,
fucking
man.
awesome.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Picture.